We're ready. It's all you, Betsy. AK, you're killing it today, by the way. Great to see you every weekend. Hey, Betsy Gordon from the Smithsonian. Bring it.
All right. Well, Elissa has to do some autographing here, but this is what we're doing right now. So first of all, I really want to thank Paul Schmidt for kind of introducing the history of the skateboard to everybody. And what I'm going to do right now is talk about the history of skating in Florida and why that is so important. Now, I know all of you might come from different cities, and your cities might have a local scene. And almost every city in the United States right now has a local scene. But there are very few states outside of California that have the kind of local, national influence that Florida's had. And we talk a lot about like places of invention. You want to think about like Silicon Valley or maybe Brooklyn for hip hop. Florida was a real place of invention for skate culture. You guys had the weather. You had the real estate. From 1976 to 1978, early on in kind of the skateboard game, you guys built 30 skate parks in Florida. You built the first skate park. California always thinks they had the first skate park. Sorry, Florida, you win. Built the first flake. Yeah, let's hear for Florida. First skate park. Yeah. And you know what else? All these skate parks, you had a lot of competitions, and a lot of kids started meeting each other at skate parks, and a lot of good skaters started coming out of California. And people started noticing. You know, Stacy Peralta, he came to Florida, and he noticed skaters like Rodney Mullen, Mike McGill. He noticed these great skaters that we have right here, Elissa Steamer, Mike Frazier. Then there's a guy like Tim Payne, started making ramps for his friends, ends up making some of the best skate parks in the world. So we're going to talk about Florida's skate legacy and Florida history, and Florida as a real influencer of how you skate, and we're talking about tricks and people who invented tricks. Where you skate, we're talking about skate parks, and we're talking about how you think about skating. Someone like Elissa, who pretty much challenged all of you by saying, yeah, girls can skate, sorry to bum you out, but girls can skate. And literally, what you're skating on has been completely influenced by Florida. How you're skating on your deck, completely influenced by a guy like Paul Schmidt. So I'm going to have Brian, Ryan, and Anthony Furlong take it away and start asking the questions. Thank you.
Hey, I was looking at my wrong panel notes right there. I'm like, I don't have any of my notes. I don't know it. But, you know, I know everyone on this panel personally. So it's like I feel like I'm prepared, but I don't need to be too prepared, you know, because then it gets like, you know, too set up. So hey, all the people skating the street course, if you guys want to go skate somewhere else for like the next 15 minutes, we'd certainly appreciate it. And then we have plenty of stuff to give away on the best trick contest over there. So just take a break here right now, please, and we'll get into this. So I want to get started with with Frazier, Mike Frazier here, and Mike. You know, we go so far back, and you know, watching you skate and grow up and become what you became in skateboarding, and like, you know, seeing you. I remember going to Astro Skate way back, and then you came back from California like a different person riding for POW, and you know, you've ridden for all these companies over the years. You know, POW and Element, Santa Cruz, Stereo. Help me out.
Birdhouse, Toy Machine.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. That's why you're up here, Anthony, for a lot.
Zorlak,
when you're trying to sell paper stickers at Astro Skate to people for 50 cents. Yeah, I know. Go way back. But this whole time, you stayed a resident of the Tampa Bay area, which is like, to me, it's always been fascinating because other people left. So would you like to, I kind of want you to comment on that and talk about that for a minute.
Well, in the beginning, you know, when I started skating, it wasn't like it was now. Nowadays, every kid has a GoPro, so they can film themselves and then have footage that's edited, send it to a company, and you're hooked up right away. You can just go, look, here's my edit. When we grew up skating, all of us up here, it was, you had to travel a little bit. So I, you know, being a vert skater, I traveled, did contests a lot, did a lot of demos. Never wanted to move out of the Tampa Bay area. We had a cool scene here, a group of friends, we had places to skate. So I just knew that it was a matter of being on the road 200 to 250 days a year, and I did that for probably 20 years. I was doing demos, contests, all the X Games, Woodward, Work Tour, everything, and I knew that if I hustled, had a, I guess, pretty good work ethic and tried to get stuff done and shoot photos whenever I had the chance when I was out of town. That would enable me to stay here and do what I like to do with my friends.
But that was the big difference for you, was being in Florida as opposed to someone in California. Everyone is in California, the media, the brands, everything, so you're really right in front of everyone. Making it on the East Coast, all up and down the East Coast, especially Florida, is a hustle, and you do actually have to put yourself out there and work hard. There was a ton of kids when we were growing up that had all the sponsors that we were like, wow, these kids are so good, and we'd go out to California and be like, we're just as good as these kids, but no one knows us because we're not around. You do have to, like, the work ethic is definitely big for Elissa, you, myself, Ed Salego, everyone that came from around here. You have to put it out there.
I think also traveling, when you're traveling, you're going to California, you're skating, people start to know who you are. Florida was always that was always a destination. Whenever guys from Transworld, Crash, or anything were on a trip, they'd always come through Florida. So they knew there was Gainesville, Tampa, Kona, places to skate, so they would call ahead, hook up, hey, we're coming, you want to shoot photos? So as long as when those guys came through, you hustled and you got stuff done, you could do what I did and skate where you want to skate.
Which is exactly like, I moved from Georgia, and you guys, the history of Florida gave me a place to go as aside from SF or San Diego or LA. Like, it gave me a destination to where I could hone my skills, so to speak, and have a good scene to skate in and not go out west. So that is a huge thing for Florida because it wasn't anything before you guys made it.
So you have Mike who traveled and stayed here. Anthony, you traveled but moved here. And then we have Elissa to my left here, who you're from Fort Myers originally. And you guys know everything Elissa's accomplished in skateboarding and the fame she's had and how she kind of is like, with the way from my generation is the legitimate girl skateboarder. And there was never a difference between, I don't want to go into the whole boys versus girls skateboarding, but there was never a difference. With Elissa, you skated with her, and you're just skating with her.
Yeah, you couldn't tell there was any difference. So there was a girl on the course. It was like just another skateboarder, which that's what transcended the time from girls, guys.
Yeah, exactly. So Elissa, Mike stayed, and then you had a level of success. You're like, later Florida, I'm out. So, and you're still out in San Francisco. So I'd like you to talk about that for a minute, please.
Well, when I grew up skating, like all the mags and everything, all the companies, most of the companies were in California. So it was hard to even know that what was happening in skateboarding. If your local 7-Eleven didn't carry trash in, how are you going to get it? How are you going to get a skateboard when you don't have a skate shop? So luckily, I was fortunate enough to come across a group of people that really were into skateboarding, like Tim Mott and some other people, from my town. And they, were up on everything, so I became a skate rat and started skating. And then so when I had the opportunity to leave Florida to go to California, because my friend Matt May from Fort Myers also was sponsored by the New Deal, and some people told him to tell me to call, like Lance Mountain, because they had seen the state when they came through, like it was a destination
for sure.
for people to come through. Okay, it was a destination for people to come to, the Skatepark of Tampa and all that. So when I had that opportunity, I just jumped on it. Me and my friend got in a van, and he and I drove across country and broke down in every state. It was a VW bus, and then I got to California, and I shot some photos with Lance Mountain, and I came back to Florida, and I packed up my stuff and got on tour.
But that was the big thing, is like being visible, being out there. It was easy for you to go cruise down the street, kickflip a gap down the street from your house, as opposed to being in Fort Myers and not having photographers. But that's what's cool, is Florida has enough history now. There are photographers here, and there are cities with big scenes.
Right. And back then it was like word of mouth, and maybe a VHS tape here and there, maybe a photo in the mag. But yeah, now the internet and all that. But the street skating was definitely better there. There was actually curbs. When I came here yesterday, I was like, wow, the streets don't even have curbs. So yeah.
Yeah, I wish we had mics for everyone because there's such great dialogue going on up here, you know. And I got we're gonna get back to you, Elissa. I'm gonna switch it over. It's such great to hear all these stories, and I never knew that you drove across the country in a van and went out there the first time. It's like you never know that stuff, you know. And I want to tie it into like so we're growing up all in Tampa together, you know, in the Tampa Bay area. And this is way back, and this goes way before Skatepark of Tampa and that place. So like I see Elissa as a kid, and I see Mike as a kid, and our friends grow up and they become pro skateboarders. So it was just this thing. And I just saw Montesi in the crowd. Montesi's another one of them that's here, and the Conklins and Mike there and Salego. Yeah, like the next generation was Salego, right? So then this whole time I'm friends with Nick Halkias, who I met when I was 15, which goes 26 years ago, to all the way back to Astro Skate is where I met you. So then a few years later, in like early 90s, 93 or 94, I'm at your house, Nick, and you started collecting skateboards. And I'm like, Nick's got a skateboard collection? Like what? You collect skateboards? So I want to know what was the first reason you started collecting skateboards, and how has that developed over the years?
Yeah, so I think the first boards I got my hands on were my friends who were turning pro at the time, early 90s. Lance Conklin specifically. I remember Lance giving me a board, and instead of skating it, which I ended up skating it, holding on to it for a little while. And I don't know if I was trying to hold on to the moment. You know, this is the early 90s, and skateboarding was very small, so I think I had no idea that so many of us would end up working in the industry, and so many of our friends, people we admired and grew up with, would become pro. And like I said, those boards ended up getting skated. By the time Clements came by the house, I think a lot of it was working at the Skatepark of Tampa. And something different back then in the 90s versus today was the paychecks weren't there. There's a lot of pros, you may know this or may not, but a lot of pros made their living selling their packages, and a lot of companies paid their pros in product. So I think the average price of a deck was about $15-20 in the parking lot of the Skatepark market. Yeah. And you could tell who needed beer money during the contest by the amount of Bill Weiss and Justin Boatman boards I had in my collection. I remember getting Elissa's first pro model off the wall at the Skatepark. I remember coming in. I remember Alan Russell saying, "Oh, dude, this is one for the collection." And that's really about the time I started.
That's what makes it really authentic, though, is when you started it and start out as like, I'm going to have this crazy collection of skateboards, it's going to be insane. You just did it because your friends were turning pro and it was cool, and that's what makes it authentic, is it became, like you said, you didn't know everyone was going to be working in the industry, that Elissa was going to have the success she had, or Frazier, or even all those guys. So now that it is, that collection is so authentic and big that it's incredible, actually.
The culture of skateboarding, to be honest, I've said this before, the culture and the visual aspect of skateboarding was always just as attractive as the freedom you feel from skating and the sport.
Hey, Nick, do you want to give up like an idea of how many skateboards you have, or is that like a secret?
It's hundreds.
Hundreds.
It's a good amount.
If I've been to, I'll brag on you. I've been to Nick's place where he stores all his skateboards, and he will ask you any pro of any time frame, and I'm like, Jeff Grosso Coca-Cola board. He's like, oh, right here, and he flips through it and gets it. He goes, I also have the Jack in the Box one and this one. It's like it gets pretty ridiculous pretty quickly.
Can I brag on Nick's collection too? Because Nick is one of the people that really started people thinking about skateboard graphics as collectible and as art. And he really has this eye for good story. He started thinking about colorways. So again, Florida's had a big influence in the way people think about skating. You don't even have to be a skater. If you want to be a weird person that just collects skate decks, you got a lot of thanks to Nick.
Thank you, Betsy. Betsy Gordon from the Smithsonian. Always dropping that knowledge that no one would ever expect you to have. And that's really, really impressive.
Betsy's pretty deep.
Yeah, it's real deep. It's real deep. A bunch of non-skateboarding intellectuals there that care a lot about skateboarding. So, okay, we talked about our friends that turned pro from Florida. We talked about skateboard decks and collecting and what that means. And then next up, I want to talk about the stuff we've skated, the terrain we've skated here in Florida for all these years. So we all grew up in the Tampa area, skating the Bro Bowl and searching for quarter pipes, and then the guys that came in the 90s skating curves and stuff, and the different spots and all the whole Tampa Bay area. But there is a major reason we're all sitting here at this skate park right here today, at this iconic, amazing skate park that the city of Lakeland put together. And one of the major reasons because of that is Mr. Tim Payne right here. So seriously, put your hands together. This guy was building ramps before you made a living building ramps, before it was a job or anything like that. He was building ramps because he wanted to build skateboard ramps. So Tim Payne, great to have you here. And
Thank you.
And what got you into, what made you think, like, I'm going to build this and skate it?
Well, I think it was a frustrating time for me being a kid because the back of my house, we had 7 miles of orange groves. We built tree houses every day. And we get these skateboard magazines and we'd see like a concrete ditch or something and we'd be like, heck, going forward, it's flat and we don't have anything, you know? So when we saw a magazine coming out, and I'm different from you guys are from the West Coast, I'm from the East Coast. So a lot of my friends, we all surf. So surfing and skateboarding was 50-50, you know, and skateboarding was real prominent over on the East Coast. And so, you know, we were getting skateboard mags, you know, in the 70s, you know. And, you know, I'd see a picture of a ditch or something, and we'd go behind the shopping mall and get an old door and stick it against the wall, and that'd be our ditch, you know. And we ended up finding spots to skate, and we realized that, you know, we live in a flat state. There's no hills, you know, to speak of really. And so we always constantly had to put plywood together stuff, you know. And it was either we were building a treehouse or building a ramp in our yard or driving there in the orange grove.
So some of the iconic things you built, everyone knows the animal chin ramp, and even the younger guys know it nowadays from the videos, you know, regaining popularity. And so you were on that project and or led that. How did that work?
Well, I was a crew leader and the head designer, and you know, that was actually probably like the 30th or 40th ramp that I built like that. But it was so awesome because we were all on the same level at that point because that's kind of where I grew up. You know, what ideas you got, what ideas you got, and everybody was like kicking in ideas. And we designed that ramp in like 30 minutes. You know, it wasn't like I had it, you know.
Mike Frazier just went, no way. Because we were all the same way. When we first saw that, it was like, what? A mini ramp on top of a ramp.
I just found out today that Tim built that ramp, and I was like, you built
Oh, that's right.
ramp?
You didn't know that.
I didn't know that. I was tripping out. I was like,
I thought you were joking.
I literally did not know that you built the chin ramp until an hour ago.
We were up talking at the pavilion up there earlier by the pool, and Tim had mentioned, he's like, everyone was building half pipes, but literally half pipes. And he goes, and then we had this idea of putting a flat bottom on it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that 14 or 15.
Okay.
It was actually my friend David Slobin in his backyard was the first wooden half pipe built in Florida, and it was the month that the Rad Ramp came out in the Transworld magazine or Skateboard magazine or whatever it was. But when we saw that ramp, we were like, that's what we want, you know? And we had the wood. I mean, there was tons of wood, and we had woods in the back. So we built it in his backyard, and a couple years later got flipped over the fence and moved into the woods and became this monster half pipe. So we always had stuff to skate on, and we realized, you know, we were poor. We couldn't afford to go to the skate parks. We'd skip school and crawl underneath the fence. We were the people who were riding no pads, no helmets, and everybody's like, who the hell are those guys, you know? And so we just were poor. We didn't have money, you know?
You just made it you were making it happen way back then. And then, of course, you know, everyone now is all up on DIY, but it was just like, it's always been ingrained in skateboarding.
But it's cool that that turned into a profession because like when I was amateur and when I turned pro and was going to bigger events like mainstream ESPN event stuff, and I didn't know who was building what, and I would show up and they'd be like, yeah, Tim Payne built this ramp. And everywhere I went, it was a ramp you built, and I was like, wow, like that's the dude. And I grew as I progressed in my career. I was like, that was the guy that was building everything. So now we have all these parks everywhere, and it's like almost all of them are Team Payne parks, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Well, I think one thing that's real important is a long time ago, Frank Park was trying to make skateboarding like a regular sport, like basketball, and he was really trying to frame it after gymnastics because
Which, if you guys don't know, that's Tony Hawk's dad.
Yeah, he's awesome because he could make a decision. You know, like he wouldn't sit there and, you know, ponder about, okay, are we going to do this? He would make a decision and stick by it. But he wanted to see a 9.5-foot ramp with a 1.5 of vert, no extensions, no channels. He wanted to see the same ramp at every event. And he hired me to build the ramps, and I was always there a week before he got there. And so I put pool coating extensions, tacos and all that stuff, you know. And it was like every skater skates different. And he wanted to have preliminary runs where everybody had to do a 50-50 and everybody had to do an invert. And it's like, well, I know people that don't do invert. But I know people that have badass footwear, you know. And so why do you want to limit people when skateboarding is evolving and everybody's got their own style, you know? I mean, today, there's not a regulation skate park, you know? We have regulation basketball courts, baseball fields, you know, like skate parks.
That's the last thing we want, though, right? I mean, who wants that?
No, it takes away from the creativity of what skateboarding is, you know?
And as you know, like every time you guys build a park and you lay it out on paper and it changes, you have a final draft of what you want. The guys that are actually pouring concrete or building the wood, they change it as they go because they see like, well, this would be cool. And sometimes that becomes the best obstacle ever, and sometimes it's hit or miss. But that's where the art comes in. Whereas it could be like the best thing everyone loves, or the thing that we missed on that one. Like, that was kind of, but you never have the blueprint never stays exactly the same, which is pretty cool.
I think that's a good point to make because a lot of cities don't accept design build. They want to have an architect come in and design the skate park, and then the skate park builders come in and build it to the plans, and then the city inspectors come in and say, hey, you can't move that a foot. You can't make that higher. You can't do that. This is on the prints. I mean, why would you hire Michelangelo to design something and then put it out to bid to have somebody build it, you know? So it's nice to see cities like Lakeland embracing design build, where the designer gets to build it because all the magic happens in the field.
Yeah, it was cool watching this place be built because I saw what was going to be done, and then I would come out here while they were building and be like, well, we're going to change that. That's actually not going to be that way. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool. And add a couple more feet to the bowl for me.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys, I would love to go on forever with this panel, and it's fascinating to every bit of it, from Elissa to Mike and Tim, Nick. Anthony, you've been a great moderator. Thank you so much. Betsy, amazing job introducing this whole thing. But we're going to do this best trick contest. Give these guys a round of applause. This is Florida history skateboarding right here.